Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McKusick, and we're back for a short here today on the history, Ravens fantasy football history. Joining me for that is Joe Eleff. Joe, how you doing?
I'm great, Ken. I'm thrilled to be here.
All right. Well, appreciate you coming on. And Joe has a new beta test for a fantasy football, historical fantasy football app he's creating. And I want to give people a chance to kind of look at it and see inside it a little bit. Now, we're not doing this in video, so you won't be seeing it in that sense, but we'll be talking through a few of the, somewhat surprising best fantasy football games in Ravens history.
Yeah, so my tool, just at its core, is that it allows every fantasy football league to essentially create their own pro football reference. So if you wanted to see, for example, what we're doing with the Ravens, where we're looking at the Ravens' best games of all time as an all-time fantasy lineup in terms of the best quarterback week ever, best running back week ever, if you ingest into my tool, then you'll be able to see your own personal history or your league's history, and you'll be able to view your fantasy football league as if you were the star of the show, as opposed to the NFL being the star of the show in Pro Football Reference, or the Ravens being the star of the show in terms of Ravens film study.
So you're the 2026 film study bananas or whatever it would be would be able to I'd be able to see that team grouped together with the passing and running stats and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And in my league personally, which is everything we're looking at right now is in the context of my league. So it's in my league scoring, which, for example, is 1/2 point per reception. So in my league, I've won 4 championships in the last 10 years. So in my world, I'm the Kansas City Chiefs. And then, some of my rivals who might have had better teams, gotten unlucky in the playoffs, might be the Baltimore Ravens.
All right. Well, that's illuminating to hear that first anyway. So give us you're giving us a kind of a 50,000-foot view of the apps. Let's talk about some of the great games in Ravens history. Because some of these are a little surprising, I think, to me. Maybe not to fantasy people, but definitely to me, not being a fantasy guy, I'm a little surprised by who has some of the best games ever.
I think some things are surprising in a couple of ways, where maybe some of the names aren't surprising. Like maybe it's not surprising Lamar Jackson has the best individual fantasy performance for any Ravens quarterback, and maybe it's not surprising that um, Derrick Henry has the best running back performance. But I think sometimes the actual games where those events occur are a little surprising. And I think one of the reasons for that is because for fantasy, your big point games aren't the games that go the best. They're the games that are the most chaotic, where and this game is not on our list, but that famous Ravens Vikings game in the snow,
Yep.
where the last 2 minutes was very chaotic. That was probably for any Marlon Brown owners in fantasy, maybe got very lucky in that game in a way that they're not supposed to. So I think that's why the performances might not skew to the games you think of as maybe the Ravens' best performances of all time.
Okay, and let's just go through a couple of these at the top. So the top couple of wide receiver performances ever kind of caught my eye.
Yeah, so a couple things that these guys have in common when I was watching the highlights, I'm preparing for this show. So a friend of the podcast, Quadri Ismail, has the #1 wide receiver game, and then Marcus Robinson has the #2 wide receiver game. So when I was watching these highlights, both these guys were number 87, and both of them caught 3 third-quarter touchdowns. So a lot of parallels in these performances.
Marcus Robinson had 4 touchdowns in that game, and he did a lot more. That's the 2003 Seattle game, folks. If you're wondering, but Marcus Robinson, not only did he have the 4 touchdown catches, he caught a huge 3rd and 15 completion in overtime to help get them into field goal range on the winning drive, and perhaps most notably on 4th and 28 when the Ravens were down to their last chance. They threw Anthony Wright threw him a bomb down the left sideline that he tipped, and Frank Sanders miraculously picked up cleanly out of the air, toe tapped in bounds, and then went out for a 44-yard completion that did it. He also drew a pass interference play with 30 seconds left to go that put him in field goal range. So fantasy didn't even begin to capture his entire win probability added for that game.
Absolutely, and I think they were down something. I think they were down by
Down
17
17. Yeah.
points late in the fourth quarter. So it was nice to see the Ravens win one of those games
Yeah.
when I was going through those highlights.
Yeah, I can tell you it was a half-empty stadium, and it was as loud as it's ever been. Something about maybe having concrete around really helps with some people missing, and then the rest of the people just going mad. The other thing about that game that I really remember is you walked out of the stadium, and a lot of times, we're in a hurry to get home, do our analysis. I know people are different places when they do this. We walked out of that stadium. Everyone was so jacked up. Everybody was literally like high-fiving each other and jumping around. And it just, the energy level was unbelievable going out of there.
And that drew their record. They went above 500. They were 5-5 going in, 6-5 going out. And I think they ended up missing the playoffs that year.
No, they made it.
They did make it?
Yeah, it's 2003. They lost a home wild card game to Tennessee. Anthony Wright was 5-1 down the stretch to take him into the playoffs in one of the great backup quarterback performances ever after Kyle Bowler went down.
Okay. I thought they missed it because that was also the year that our number 2 running back game, Jamal Lewis, set the single game rushing record at the time as it stood and was second all time in rushing yards. So he was the first Raven, obviously, to win Offensive Player of the Year. I think he's still the only Raven to win Offensive Player of the Year, unless I'm mistaken.
Lamar hasn't won it?
No, because he wins MVP, I think. I think in today's era, like since Lamar's come in the league.
They changed it, yeah. If 2019, if Lamar did not win it that year, it'd be pretty ridiculous, but he might not have.
No, I think that was probably Christian McCaffrey because I think he had 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving that year. I could be mistaken.
It's just an absurd misallocation of that thing. I know they're trying to. If you want to have a running back award, go ahead and make it a running back award, or make it the non-quarterback offensive player of the year. But if quarterbacks are eligible, Lamar should have certainly won it that year. And I think you're right. I don't think he did.
But what do you remember? I'm wondering. So if we're staying on the topic of 2003, were you at the game when Jamal Lewis ran for 295?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I guess when did the crowd sort of realize he's just doing something incredible?
After 2 carries, he had two carries for 105 yards. So he had an 82-yard run for the first touchdown. Then he had a 23-yard run on a second run, and at that point, the crowd knew he had 183 at halftime. And Ogden supposedly went to him and said, "Let's make sure we get 300 this game." And
I was watching the highlights, and they took him out with 7 minutes in the fourth with the ball. So I'm surprised they didn't just give it to him 1 or 2 more times.
Well, it's certainly the rest of that season was peppered with times where they gave him extra carries to try and get to 2,000 yards. So it was a little surprising. Took a great defensive effort that day, by the way. You don't have a game like that happen without having a great defensive effort to take the ball away from your opponent. And the Lewis also kind of benefited from the ineptness of Kyle Bowler at that point, because they first of all, they really wanted to run the ball, but second of all, the game was close until fairly late. And they still had to put the game away in the fourth quarter. So that was, or late in the third quarter anyway. So, it was one of those games.
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those seasons. Like if let's say that, 2006 era Steve McNair was the Ravens quarterback, I don't think Jamal Lewis necessarily would have rushed for 2,000 yards that year.
Yeah, quite possibly not. All right, so let's talk about we talked about wide receivers, we talked about running backs. Is there a great tight end game in there that you want to highlight?
Yeah, so I think this is one people might probably guess, because I think this game's known as probably Lamar Jackson's, at least up to that point, Lamar Jackson's best game as a pure passer. That was the big Monday Night Football game against the Colts.
Yeah.
And I think why this game is probably more significant for fantasy players than Ravens fans or NFL fans is that when a chaotic game happens on Monday night, that really just changes the progression. That's almost like a late fourth quarter change of circumstances to watching an NFL game, because 15 to 16 NFL games have happened, and when the last game is the most chaotic, that can swing a lot of matches. So I think fantasy managers might remember that game more closely than necessarily NFL fans. And this game is also Hollywood Brown's best career game.
Interesting. The 21 game against the Colts was Hollywood Brown's best. Not Miami in 2019. That kind of surprised me a little bit.
No, so I could pull that up for you.
Yeah.
So Miami's the second best game, and it was 0.3 points different. So, and based on my league's rules, that is less than 1 0-yard reception.
Okay.
And so if somebody else out there is playing by a different set of rules, if they're in my tool, then maybe that Miami game would be above the Colts game.
All right, so I want to talk about the tool itself really briefly. You have the ability to set it for your own league's rules in terms of how it scores.
Yeah, so I can show you really quickly just how it looks like. I understand that the listeners won't necessarily hear it, but if you're on the landing page and then there's a new user button, and you don't need to sign in, you don't need to pay me money. All you need to do is just put in your league ID number, and when you hit that button, if you use so right now I'm set up for the Sleeper platform and for Yahoo. So if you use Sleeper, then maybe about 10 to 15 minutes later, you'll get a full website just like what I was showing you for my league. And Yahoo, it takes a little bit longer just based on how they handle their data. So it's probably closer to an hour.
All right, well, cool. It's a cool idea to try and present these people with their own teams. And I guess that's what Yahoo and Sleeper do. You were telling me also you have a new statistic to help with fantasy football drafting to like relativize value.
Yeah, I use it for drafting because my tool actually has a draft optimizer where it looks at your league's history and the habits of the people in your league, and it will tell you what values to allocate to different players based on what has been successful strategies in your league historically. So whether your league maybe they undervalue quarterback, maybe they overvalue quarterback, and it'll tell you where to look on the margins there. But what I believe you're referring to is a statistic I have that sort of normalizes player performance based on your league's rules and tendencies, where if maybe in your league you start two quarterbacks, quarterbacks are more valuable. And if you start one quarterback each week, maybe quarterbacks are less valuable. So this automatically, when you set up your league in my website over that 10-15 minute period, will create almost like a wins above replacement metric, what Major League Baseball has, but for your league. So it's a league adjusted measure above replacement, or Lamar for short.
There you go.
And it will tell you how many points did your player have that actually matter compared to a replacement player at that position.
All right. So to maybe state this a little differently, I'm going to try and parrot back some of what I think I heard. And maybe if I'm not getting this correct, you say this. So it looks at the rules. I don't think it doesn't look at the tendencies of the other owners within your league, correct, for this statistic?
Almost the opposite. It looks at how many players of each position
That's
are
rules.
But it looks at how many players are rostered. How many so if your league hoards quarterbacks compared to other leagues, then the replacement quarterback will have a different value than a league that doesn't value quarterbacks or doesn't value tight ends.
Okay, so that kind of a model probably breaks down if everybody's using your tool and realizes, hey, we've been doing it wrong all these years. We've been hoarding quarterbacks. It's much more efficient to hoard running backs.
Right, but it does look back at so I could show you. So this is based on my league. If you look at the best game seasons or careers since my league has started based on my Lamar statistic. So if you're just looking at fantasy points, it would be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, because quarterbacks are always going to score the most points. But you'll see that the best game since my league has begun is Alvin Kamara, and the best season and the best career are both Christian McCaffrey, because Lamar helps normalize, and it'll basically just give you a number that shows how much value did this player have compared to peers at their position.
Okay, I get that part. I was going to get to that in the second part. Was that you basically a higher variance position? It's worthwhile to have the players who are towards the top end as opposed to one that's very narrowly grouped, which I'm not sure the quarterbacks are, but they could be more narrowly grouped than running backs, say.
Yeah, it's also that. So my league has 10 teams and one quarterback each. So there's 10 quarterbacks on rosters, which means that there's 22 starting NFL quarterbacks that you could just grab whenever, as opposed to running backs where you're starting 2 or 3 a week. And that doesn't even count guys on your bench. So the top 50 or so running backs are on rosters, and the 51st best running back in the NFL is, I don't know, maybe it's Keaton Mitchell or something like that.
Yeah, that I was just going to guess that might be the guy, or just Justice Hill a year ago. Maybe he might have even been better than that.
Right. So those are the type of players you could grab for free.
Joe, great stuff here. How do people sign up for your beta if they'd like to?
Yeah, so if you go to leaguehistory.streamlit.app, and I can post the link when you post the episode, I can
Mhm.
post the URL to the link. But you just go to the website, you click 2 or 3 buttons, and then hopefully 10, 15 minutes later, you'll have a full-fledged Pro Football Reference equivalent, just based on your league as the hero.
All right, very cool. I appreciate you laying this out for us, Joe. It's I think it's a really interesting analytics concept in terms of valuing people relative to league tendencies is unbelievably good, but also relative to even just the variance by position is something that's quite valuable. And good luck with that. I hope that works out for you. Tell folks where they can talk football with you if they want to on mine.
Yeah, so I'm still building up my socials as I go through the beta and start building this up, but I am on X as Kedma Weather for now until I get some real branding. Um, and I've posted my tool a couple times on some smaller subreddits, so hopefully you can find me there and on bigger and bigger subreddits as I grow more and more confident.
All right. It's great to have you, Joe. Other folks out there, please make use of the hashtag Film Study Mailbag. I'll try and get to your questions, whether it's in a 1 or 2 minute video or on the appropriate show, Friday morning GM, or maybe a short that I'd have you on if your question is really good and thought provoking. Appreciate all the listens, of course, as always. Joe, thanks again for coming on,
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
and we'll talk to you next time on Film Study. Hi, folks. The Super Bowl is here, and MyBookie is where you can turn your bets into bankroll. Are you scheduled to go to the Super Bowl party and you don't want to be there? Yeah, I've been to that party too. Managing your portfolio of wagers through the evening can be your ticket through Super Sunday without getting caught up in your brother in law's political rhetoric. Whatever your take on the game, MyBookie has both side and prop bets to make your Super Sunday a lot of fun. That's why I use MyBookie. You've probably heard them talked about on Jimmy Kimmel Live for their deep board of prop bets. These bets become some long-lasting memories, including watching Refrigerator Perry score in Super Bowl 20 at 100-1 odds. If there's ever a time to get in, it's right now. One account, one wallet, bet the spread, live bet the second half, hit the casino during commercials. It all lives in one place. Go to mybookie.ag now, use promo code Ravens, and get your first bet covered up to $500. If it doesn't hit, use your bet back bonus token and run it back. Don't just watch the big game, make it pay on MyBookie.
Let me tell you about the online cannabis company that's changing the game, Mood.com. They created an entirely line of functional gummies, 100% federally legal THC blends, discreetly delivered right to your doorstep. And here's the best part. You can get 20% off your first order at Mood.com with the promo code Ravens. Now, I've tried a bunch of their gummies myself. Each one's totally unique. The Sleepy Time gummies knock me out right away. They help me unwind fast, leave me refreshed the next morning. The Epic Euphoria gummies, they're perfect for when your day just isn't going the way you want it to go. What makes Mood special is how they pair the THC with natural herbs and adaptogens. You won't find blends like this at any local shop. They've got gummies designed for focus, relaxation, clarity, even energy, all made from cannabis grown on small, family-owned American farms. No pesticides, no shortcuts, just high-quality weed you can trust. Plus, Mood backs everything with a 100-day satisfaction guarantee. So head on over to Mood.com, check out their amazing selection, and don't forget to use the promo code Ravens at checkout to save 20% off your first order.
Sometimes it can feel like everyone else has it together in their love lives. Whether married, dating, or single, the truth is most of us are still figuring out and finding our way. February is a tough month, whether you're single or married. You may feel pressure with all the talk of flowers, candy, stuffed animals, relationships, and dating. Therapy can help you identify what's dragging on your relationships and find ways to brighten them again. Whether it's for individuals or couples, it's an opportunity to identify what's getting in the way and help remove obstacles to happiness. That's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp has quality therapists who work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the United States. BetterHelp does the initial therapist matching work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. A short questionnaire helps identify your needs and preferences, and their 12 plus years of experience and industry-leading match fulfillment rate means they typically get it right on the first try. If you aren't happy with your match, switch to a different therapist at any time. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 6 million people globally, and it works. With an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. Sign up and get 10% off at BetterHelp.com. That's BetterHelp.com. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.